Morning. Welcome to Caffeinate Your Career. Today's topic, why applying online rarely works and what does. I'm your host, the career coach with the most, Jason Hopper. With me back again this week, we have got the world famous. You laugh every time I say that.
It's just getting old.
Award-winning, how about that? Award-winning former talent development specialist, Scott Butnick. Scott, welcome back to Caffeinate Your Career.
Thank you, Jason. It is a pleasure to be here and be with you and everybody out there this morning.
And I can see that we are live. Oh, no. That's not right. Let's try this again. Scott, while I'm checking to make sure that we are live, in case they missed you last week, give us your elevator pitch real quick.
No, if I have to repeat it, I'm going to charge for it. So
I can tell that.
I was a recruiter for about 30 years, mostly in financial services. A lot of that, the last 12 years or so that I recruited, I was in the mortgage business. It was, just crazy. It was a chase every day, and it was fun. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed helping companies solve their problems, and I enjoy helping people take their career to the next level.
Yeah.
So I always saw it in a very, what's the word? Your 50-cent word, bifurcated way. I think that's the word. On one hand, helping the company and the managers I work with solve their challenges, and also help people take their career to the next level.
Yeah, it definitely is a profession that can be very rewarding and oftentimes too very thankless.
Well, sometimes I felt like a referee or an umpire in a baseball game. Yeah.
That could be, I could see that as an analogy as well, having that background too. So today's topic, why applying to jobs online rarely works and then what does. I see this time and again is job hunters, they fall into this trap where the idea is that they're going to apply to the job, and then the recruiter is going to see their application and resume. They're going to get that call. They're going to get the interview. They're going to get the second interview, maybe the third interview, and then they're going to get the offer. That's the myth and the idea around the job search, right? But that isn't really how the job search itself actually works.
Well, I would only not challenge you because I think you're largely right. But it's not a myth. Here's the way to look at it. Pardon me. Applying online it's a little bit of an exercise in the dark. Okay. But if you don't do it, you may not get considered anywhere. But it's not the best way to go about looking for a job, and it's a highly unproductive way. But to not do it, I don't know that you can completely ignore it. That's all. But in terms of the activities in which you should engage during a job search, I'd say sitting down and doing mass applications online, pretty much a waste of time. Not totally, but pretty much.
I think that part of the problem with that is you think you're being productive.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, got so much. I applied to 500 jobs today, and somebody's going to call me any minute now.
Right.
No, probably not.
I think that's the same person that when they get a job, again, and I'm going to steal your word, Jason, they're busy, but they're not productive.
They're busy, but not productive. That's right.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because, you can automate the process, right? There are enough
bots and things.
There's enough AI and tools out there where you can just automate that process. But even still, and I just read an article where somebody did automate the process and applied to over 5,000 jobs in a couple of days, and it only got 2 callbacks.
Yeah.
Right? It's still not being productive. And part of the reason for that is mostly part of it is because of the applicant tracking system, software that companies are going to use, because when you so sitting at your desk and just applying to jobs, terrible strategy, because you are actually playing a game that's designed to block most of the people that apply to the job.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So you just doing that, you've already set yourself up for failure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we talk about the ATS like a lot. But like, I think it's important to understand like how it works and what it is that you're going to need to do to get past the actual software, the robots.
Well, and so first you got to tune up your resume. You got to make sure your resume is effective, that your resume speaks to the job. But I still think, again, if you look at the steps you can take, and these are what I'm going to say, and applying for jobs online, pardon me, are not the only two things you should do when you engage in a job search. But the thing that's going to help you the most, and we hammer away at this, and I know with your other, quote, guests, close quote, is network. That's where you're going to create a connection and a relationship that's going to give you an inside track. Is it going to hand you the offer? No, nothing hands you the offer. You have to work at it. But if somebody engaged in a job search said, I can go to a meetup, or I can sit and apply for jobs, I'll see you at the meetup.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that just about as close, ladies and gentlemen, to a no-brainer as you can get, because that's where the opportunities are. Now, again, we've talked about it before. Don't expect immediate results. In fact, if you go to we don't want to get off on a networking. We did this last week. But if you go to those things and you expect immediate results, you probably, again, to expropriate your phrase, you're setting yourself up for failure. But to sit down and apply for hundreds of jobs, I saw something just the last couple of days about one of the online journals about a hiring manager who started to notice that she had been doing a fair amount of interviewing, and guess what? All the thank you notes, she got a thank you note from all these people, and they all look the same. Can you say AI?
They were,
okay.
Well,
and you don't want to get crazy with stuff. We talked about resumes last week. You don't want to get crazy with your resume, but you don't want to be totally vanilla either. So that's why I think using a bot or applying for hundreds of jobs online, frankly, the only time I would tell somebody you need to apply online is if you're seeing postings or know of a job where there's a couple hundred opening, like when Six Flags starts hiring early in the spring for seasonal jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty much the way they're going to source candidates, all right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want a job, you're thinking about building a career, applying online, the odds are, I think you alluded to the same thing. The odds are so stacked against you that when you appropriate your time, there are better things you can be doing.
You mentioned AI a minute ago, writing thank you notes. AI can also automate that process for applying and write your resumes, and that's another point of something that's happening currently in the workplace market. Is recruiters aren't really trusting resumes right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're written by AI, and AI does what AI does. It will just replicate. So outside of your name and contact information and the employer where you work, the resumes are coming out cookie cutter. And so companies and recruiters especially have moved away from a lot of resumes. Mm-hmm. And because AI is the one driving it. And the current fix for it is a lot of companies have started adding applications or assessments at the end of applications. So the AI can automate and do the application, but it can't do the assessment. The human has to do that.
Right.
So even now, companies are trying to put the human back into the process, which is funny because the ATS has a form of AI in it, which weeds out all of the things. So it's like it's a give and take, a push and pull on both ways. And the other thing too, why just applying to jobs doesn't really work is one, there's just a lot of competition.
Sure.
Right? I read an article not too long ago that said that job postings are getting anywhere. Oh, well, it actually gave the number. The number was 242. I guess they took like an average, but job postings are getting 242 people applying to them, right? Which is a lot. And I want to and it's good that you're here as a talent development specialist, Scott, because I want to pull back that curtain, so to speak, and talk about how recruiting actually works, right? Because you get a job, you got a new job, right? And so
a new opening.
You got a new opening.
As opposed to getting,
right? You got a new job requisition, right? Where do you start?
So typically I'm looking, it depends on what kind of job it is, for one thing, because there are certain job families where candidates are going to be out there on the boards, on Indeed, and I may go out and source proactively. For other kinds of jobs, for the kinds of jobs I filled the last 10, 12 years of my career, I couldn't find candidates online, because it was a very narrow definition, if you will, of what a successful profile looks like. And a lot of that had to do with their production.
Okay. Yep.
So that person generally isn't going to be online. But in a job family that's more diversified, that we're looking for different types of profiles, different types of experience sets that we're willing to train, then I can go broader. So I have to know that. And the first thing, this isn't terribly relevant today, but it helps my mind think through the process. The first thing I'm going to do when I get a new requisition is talk to the hiring manager. Okay. You know that too. Mm-hmm. And so now I get an idea of, who is not the perfect candidate, because there's no such thing as a perfect candidate, but what does the person's profile look like that you think would be successful in this job? And then it's a matter of going out and trying to find that person. If it's a job that's like early in my career, I hired a lot of bank people and I hired a lot of hourly people, specifically tellers, right? And the bank's brand was well known enough that I didn't have to source. There were always resumes coming in.
Yeah.
People were always hitting. We had an ATS. It was effective at the time. This is, goodness gracious, the late 90s and early 2000s, right? So the ATS was good enough as a depository, if you will, for resumes.
Yes.
And so it's a matter of doing that. It's a matter of knowing as a recruiter, if you're going to go out to the boards and source proactively, knowing which boards are going to be effective for you, because, and we've talked about this ad infinitum, time is important to it when you're a recruiter.
Yep.
And how you allocate your time, how much time you give to a project, and that's going to relate to how, all the factors. How quickly does the hiring manager need to fill the job? And, your conversation with your manager. Most of the time, an experienced recruiter, as soon as they see a job, they're going to know. I knew. Okay, I still talk to the manager just in case there was something different. But then I made a determination. Usually within the first 2 or 3 days that the rec is open, do I have to get more proactive? Which means, am I going to go out to LinkedIn and look for people that fit the profile?
Right.
Okay. I hired investment salespeople, recruited investment salespeople. So we had another database where we could go out cold leads. But I knew if you were in the database, I knew you had the right licenses.
Right.
Okay. And so I could call you and say, "Hi, Jason, this is Scott Butnick. I'm a recruiter. I was always very upfront. Be careful if you get a call from a recruiter and they're not upfront about what they do. I'll share that with you. But I recruit for XYZ. We're looking for some licensed salespeople, and I know that you're in the industry, and I know you have licenses. Are you open to a conversation? Yes, no. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity."
Yep.
Okay. Very similar with mortgage salespeople, which is what I did those last dozen years. But again, what you do is pretty much, I don't want to say dictated, but it's laid out to you. Your experience as a recruiter tells you what you're going to have to do when you look at a job requisition, a new requisition, and it varies, which is part of what makes what makes the recruiter's job interesting.
And how many candidates are you looking for per job
opening?
Yeah,
I always tried to get at least 5 people in front of the manager.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. 5 was like a bit. Now, if I'm going to be honest with you and with our audience, did I always get to 5? No. But sometimes I got more than 5.
Yeah.
Okay. In some of those, like for teller jobs and things, sometimes, you know what? Sometimes the first person I would send on the interview, I knew if Jason Hopper had a 10 o'clock interview with my hiring manager for a teller job, and the hiring manager's name shows up in my caller ID at 11 o'clock, you're getting hired.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, right. That's how that works, right? But just real quick, because the chat's moving. Good morning, Krista Kirshner, Gail, Sandra Dixon, Wendy. Good morning to all y'all. Thank you for tuning in and watching today. So, I'm going to tie this all back in. I want to know the process, Scott, because and the number we're trying to reach is 5, right?
Yeah.
We only are. That's why the hiring manager has us as the recruiter.
Right. That's exactly.
They don't want to shift through 10, 15, 20 resumes. They want the best 5 candidates, right? Okay. Now, on paper, everybody's the same. Given a few years of experience and or knowing some software, but everybody's the same. If we're looking for tellers, they're all tellers.
Yeah.
Or they're all customer service people that could possibly do the job, right? Okay. So the first thing that I do when I get that new job is I go and see who's on the bench. Who have I already spoken to, interviewed, and qualified as a potential candidate, right? Now, for fun, I'm going to say I only have 1.
Yeah.
Just 1. Okay. Now, I need 4 more.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. So recruiting teams depends on where you are. I've worked in some staffing companies where we had 4 recruiters on the team. I've worked corporate where most of the time we have 4 or 5 recruiters in-house, like in our office. There may be others in other satellite offices, but this in our building, there's 4 or 5. Okay, I got 1. I'm going to go to Scott. Scott, you got any tellers? Have you talked to anybody lately and qualified them? Scott goes, oh, I got 2. How many do I have now? 3. I only need 2 more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to do what you just said. I'm going to go run a search in the ATS to see what other tellers may have applied previously. And it's going to print out It doesn't print today. We don't print stuff today. It's going to list out. It's going to list out from the last person that called in down. I only need 2. I'm just going to start calling the list, right? As soon as 2 people say, sounds great, Jason, submit my resume, I have my 5 and I'm done.
Yeah. What
have I not done yet? I haven't looked at anything that somebody did to apply.
Right. True.
Right? Because while I'm actively sourcing, my admin, recruiting coordinator, whomever is posting that job now on Indeed, LinkedIn, our website, wherever it's going to be posted. And now people are starting to apply to that job. I haven't even looked at any of those people because I already got my 5.
You got your
just
5?
Talking to you, calling people that have already applied. And this is why, guys, just sitting and applying to jobs doesn't work. Right. Now, there have been times in my career where I have submitted 5 candidates and the manager's like, these are terrible. I don't like it. Give me 5 more. And now I got to go back.
That's I was gonna, if you wouldn't have said it, I would have brought it up. That's when you start to get a little white knuckled.
Yeah, and especially like when we're doing like tellers, customer service, that's easy.
Yeah,
like those can be filled like that. Yeah. But a salesperson, that's going to take a little bit more time. Right. I may have 5, I may not, and now I'm going to start going to see who's actually applied to the job on my dashboard in the ATS, and I'm going to start calling those people. So even still, let's say I have nothing and I still just need 5 sales guys. Okay. Now I'm starting to see who's applied to the job. We're going to pretend everyone's qualified.
Yeah.
Right. So we start to apply the people that are there. I still just need 5. So as soon as 5 say yes, I'm done. That means if you're applying to jobs online, if you're not, and I'm going to be real generous and say the first 15 people that applied, nobody's going to see any of your applications.
Yeah.
And guys, that is just how the recruiting process works. This is why outside of the ATS itself, designed to block 97% of the people that do apply, that even if it gets past that and you end up on my dashboard, you're still probably not going to get called.
I'll say this much. Not necessarily in defense of recruiters, but reflecting back on the way I did my job, no argument. Those other couple hundred resumes may not get looked at before the job gets filled. But I always looked, it might have taken me another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but I always looked at every resume.
Did you really?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Now, I can also tell you 90% of them wouldn't have gotten an interview had I looked at them before the job was filled. Okay? They're not qualified. But I still looked at them because maybe of that 10%, I do go back. I put them in a saved file, and I do go back to them the next time I have that opening. Or if it's a job, like teller jobs are what I relate to in terms of mass hiring, volume hiring.
Yeah.
Okay. And so teller jobs, the bank where I worked, we had branches all over. We had branches, Bank of America. So it was all over the country. It was all over DFW. That since has become a little more constricted as banks have decided to close branches. But it was worthwhile to save whatever ones were qualified, but just didn't make the cut before we filled the job. Okay, and that happens sometimes.
Yep.
It's something we've talked about many, many times. Finding a job is about timing.
Yeah,
it's about time.
Sure.
It's a little bit of luck, and to me, timing is just a euphemism for luck. And I hope that everybody out there has good timing. It's not something you can control. So what do? You keep going, and you stay positive.
Sandra asked, can you give examples of what is included in an assessment when you apply? She hasn't come across that. Good question, Tandra. It could be it could be several different things. Depends on what the company is looking for. The assessment could be personality based. Yeah. It could be based on customer service. It could be there are math problems in there. Right. It just depends on what the company is needing at that point in time.
Yeah. And companies know this too. They need to be careful. They do use assessments, but they need to be careful with them. There have been issues with assessments over time, and they just need to be aware of them. But that's a topic for another day. You're probably not going to know that an assessment may need some closer examination by the company's attorneys. But there have been issues with assessments. But they are being used, and it's the way that they because everybody's looking to economize and make their people more productive, and assessments help do that.
I don't like assessments at all.
I think don't either.
I think that there's sometimes a bias in it, and I think too some people just they don't test well.
No, right, exactly.
And just because of that, it's they get nervous because applying to the job is the easy part.
Yeah.
But then it's like the assessment shows up. I think I probably have told this story before, but I was young. I was a kid, and I was in line to interview for an assistant manager position at a video store.
Okay.
It was a local chain. They had like 3 stores in the DFW, and so I interviewed for the position, and the next part was to go and take an assessment, which I did. I went to it was a psychiatrist that was a family friend of the owner or something, and he had me take this assessment, and then he sat down with me and he talked with me for maybe no more than 10 minutes, and the questions were, and then they were all the psychiatrist kinds of questions too. He's like, "So, tell me about your father." Just like weird crap.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, this is the strangest interview because I've had other interviews before. And so I go back and a couple days later and I talk to my boss. I'm like, "Hey, did you get the word back, or what's the assessment? Like how did the thing go?" And he goes, "Well, we got the assessment back and we got the psychiatrist's notes, and
you're crazy."
That's exactly what he said. Yeah, he recommends us not hiring you for the position because according to him, you're psychotic. I am not making this up, but Nick, I'm not making this up. That's what he told me. And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Okay, we have gotten together and we don't think that you're psychotic. We are going to offer you the management position." And he said, but that was what we reported back. And I'm not, and I did get promoted and ended up, running the store. But like that was the assessment. This was like back in the day. So I mean, it was a while ago. Again, I was a kid, but
and that was when you stopped putting those mushrooms in your salad, right?
But like that was the assessment. I told him, like, "Oh, you're psychotic."
No kidding.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Wow.
So I don't put a lot of stock in them, but companies are, they still use them. Let's talk about, let's shift gears and talk about like what, if applying on jobs online, just doing that doesn't work. Let's talk about what does. We talked about networking a bit ago, and I ended up getting hired at a staffing company before I'd even filled out the application. Like, here's what happened. I was at a staffing agency. I'd lost my job. This was a Friday. Monday rolls around. First thing I do, it's 8:00. Let's get moving. I see a job is posted at another staffing company, and I happen to actually know the center manager. So I emailed him directly, and I said, shout out to Sean. I said, "Sean, I see you guys have an opening. I'm interested. What do you think?" And he wrote back immediately and emailed me and said, "I would never hire you." And I was like, wow, that was super. That's rude. So in comes the biz dev person who I also knew. She was my manager where I just got let go. And he's joking around with her. And it was like, Hopper sent me an email saying he wants to come work over here. And she's like, "Oh, no, he's serious. He called me Friday and he's back on the market and looking." Now, Sean didn't know that. He calls me immediately. He's like, "Dude, I am so sorry." He goes, "But do you want to come in and sit in on our staff meeting today at 4?" And I'm like, "Sure, that sounds great." He goes, "Yeah, then we could see if this might be a good fit for you."
Yeah.
So I come in at 4. There's another Sean there that I know that I worked with at a different staffing agency. Meet the office manager, sit through their meeting, see what they're working on, and afterwards Sean's like, "Hey, come sit down in my office, let's talk." And he goes, "So what do you think?" I'm like, "Well, I know you, I know Lydia, I know the other Sean." So I work well with you guys. Like, I think it might be a good fit. He goes, great. I want you to go home and do the application. Mm-hmm. You start tomorrow. I'm like, excellent.
I think I just got the job.
Excellent, right?
Yeah.
And so the only reason any of this happened is networking.
Yeah.
I happen to know Sean. He knew me by reputation because he worked with me at that previous agency, and I'd gone out with him on sales calls. So he knows I'm a good recruiter. He knows how I work, right? So I've already built the relationship with him. Lydia, who was my former boss, and I was actually at the time we were renting. She got married and was going to rent out her house, and she was my landlord, right? So we're friends. Right. And then we had the other Sean that I knew. And so I ended up getting the job before I even filled out the application. This can be done.
It's actually, I think you know this now. I had to learn it at a point some years ago. It's actually pretty common.
Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty common. And frankly, you can usually... your experience will mirror Jason's because it's happened to me, but Jason described it in more detail, and I'll use your experience. When that happens, it means you probably got access to an opportunity that you should really want, that you would really want. And further, I was going to say this, and you talked about it, but I think it bears repeating, is when you get that kind of invitation that Jason got, because I have too, not often.
Yeah.
But it has happened. You clear the decks on your calendar. You know what? You may not get a job offer, but the reason they invited Jason, and it happened to me once or twice, hey, come on, sit in with us, is they want to know if you're a culture fit. If they're wondering whether you're a culture fit, they already think you're qualified for the job.
Oh, 100%.
Okay?
Yeah.
So... And those are, can you, one of the questions a hiring manager is trying to answer without asking specifically is, will you fit on my team? Are you coachable? And will you fit? Because I don't want to hire someone that's going to upset the dynamic of my team, especially if we've been successful.
Yeah.
And we've been successful. Maybe somebody got promoted, so there's an opening. Okay. But yeah, if it wasn't obvious to those of you watching this morning, when you get an invitation like that, you clear the decks. I mean, I only the most significant family occasions would outrank the opportunity to sit in with a group of people in a meeting like that.
Yeah, there's not, and that's the fastest I've ever gotten hired.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like terminated on a Friday, hired on a Monday. But it's because it's usually a process. And Scott, how important, and you mentioned kind of a minute ago or alluded to the referral, right? Somebody, and I would love getting referrals, especially when I was an on-site manager.
Yes.
It's like, hey, my friend Jim is looking for work. I did a lot as an on-site manager at a logistics company, so a lot of material handlers, forklift drivers. He could drive, sit down, stand up for it. I'm like, great, let's call Jim and get him in here.
Yeah.
Jim's at least getting the phone call.
Right.
And a lot of companies have referral bonuses. It'll pay a referral bonus.
Exactly. And referrals are just, as a recruiter, referrals, I don't know if I would call it my bread and butter. I'm trying to think of a better descriptor. But the lifeblood, okay?
Yeah, that's a good descriptor.
The lifeblood of being a recruiter are referrals. And when you're referred into an opportunity, you get a certain amount of priority. And how do you get referred? You network. I know you're probably thinking at this point, after listening to me for 4 weeks, but I know you talk about this with other people on the podcast, that it's that dead horse and it is proverbially being beaten, but it cannot be overemphasized because it brings about so many good things for your career and to give you access to opportunities. And because you don't know, you can't know how important referrals are to recruiters. So if you get referred, you've got the, again, proverbial leg up on somebody else. You do. And that comes from network.
Well, it's what's interesting, and what you just said is like, oh, we talk about this all the time, or talk about this all the time, which we do, but like, this also might be somebody's first time to listen to the podcast, so they missed all that.
Welcome.
Which you go back and look at other episodes, or me and Scott, or somebody else, but it is actually just straight up talking to people.
Yeah,
is the main pillar in how I coach, because I understand that once I can get you to understand that the very next person you speak to could potentially be the unlock to your next opportunity. That's right? And you mentioned meetups at the beginning, Scott, and I think I love meetups so much. I think they're brilliant. And the reason that I like it is, well, one, they're already going to like you because you like whatever the topic of the meetup is.
That's right.
Right? If it's detective TV shows, great. They're already going to like you because you like detective TV shows.
Yeah.
And then they're going to start talking to you, and they're going to want to know stuff about you. Right? And I go to meetups. I have a gaming meetup I go to every Wednesday, right? Okay. And I know everything about these people. Yeah. I know a lot about them. One gal became a client. She's like, Hopper, I'm thinking of switching jobs. Give me your pitch. I'm like, cool. I pitched her on my career coach, and she's like, she became a client, right? So like, you just never know.
You don't.
But when you understand that you never know who somebody's gonna know.
Right.
That's why this is so important. I think it's important to think of your job search not as applying for jobs, but building relationships and positioning yourself for opportunities.
Which teaches you a lot about, if we take it to the next level, and this is not a conversation about how to be effective in the workplace, but that's what sets the foundation for you to be effective in the workplace. Because being effective in the workplace is not 100% about relationships. You can hang on to a job for a long time without really good relationships, but you can't grow. You can't grow without relationships.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's, me just knowing somebody and getting hired on, within a couple of days, or you want to move up in your department or a different department, somebody's got to put the stamp on that to say, yep, I think you'd be great at it.
And if you're wondering, okay, so you keep talking about relationships and networking. So, how do I start? Well, that's what the meetup does is, and Jason, I think it's worth repeating. You're looking for places that you have it's a good idea to have some commonality in advance, something that you can talk about with that person. So I'm not a gamer guy. That's just a little bit ahead behind my time. But you go to those things and you can say, hey, I was in GameStop the other day and I saw this online. This game. Yeah, I saw that too. In fact, I tried it out. So, so did I. Now, you have commonality. It has nothing to do with your career, but it gives you the beginning of a relationship with somebody. It could be sports. It could be gaming. It could be, current events. I don't want to say politics because you got to be really careful with that.
Yeah, no politics.
But there's any number of conversational disciplines that can give you the opportunity to start a relationship. And once you do that, that's probably the single biggest, I think that's the hurdle most people feel, whether it's real or not, in doing networking, is getting over that, I won't even call it obstacle, speed bump. It's a speed bump.
Yeah.
Because it isn't that hard to do. But you got to be proactive about it. And you have to be willing to, when I say put yourself out there, don't go to a meetup and tell people your whole personal story or your struggles, but talk about what you're passionate about.
You mentioned sports. Sports is so big right now, right?
Yeah.
What's happening? The World Cup is happening, and it's here. It's in Dallas. It's in our city, right? And you talk about the commonality.
Yeah.
You talk about two strange, or even I know you like baseball. I love baseball too. We're big baseball guys. Yeah. You're sitting there next to somebody, and your team just hits a home run. You're probably going to be high-fiving the dude next to you. Like you're talking, you're like, oh my God, did you just see that? Yeah. Like the stranger that's next to you has now become your best friend. Right?
Before we came on today, Jason and I were discussing somebody that he knows that's preparing to play competitive football. Okay, and Jason's right. Baseball, in terms of spectator sports, has always been my first love. It still is, but I still like football. So I like having a conversation. And I was fascinated hearing the story about how this person is preparing to enter the world of competitive football. And so it was, again, more common. And we would bore you if we talked about the areas where we have shared interests. But that's why I'm very proud of the fact that I can say to you all, I have a relationship with Jason Hopper.
Yes.
Okay, because we have plenty of things we can talk about.
Yes. And you mentioned the commonality. All relationships have to be built on two things. First is commonality. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. The second, trust.
Agreed.
Trust.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to refer you to somebody, I better know that you're going to show up on time, you're going to be dressed right, you're going to be ready to go and polished and set up for success as best as you can, right?
And in fact, so much so that when you are referred, somebody is putting their trust in you. And you probably have that person a significant debt of gratitude. Because people, I can tell you this too, people are reluctant to refer people they're not sure about.
Oh, 100%.
Because I saw it. I saw it a lot.
Well, and it's not, we talk about being referred to jobs, but maybe it's like, hey, I need some towel work done in my bathroom. Do you got a guy? Oh, I got a towel guy.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
Like, I just asked this the other day at lunch, and Brenda's like, we had a guy, but I'm not going to refer him. Yeah. She was like, he did okay, but we weren't real 100% happy. It's like, don't refer me somebody bad.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
It's like I remember it was an old Seinfeld joke. It's like everybody's got the best doctor, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got the best doctor. Let me give you a referral. I'm going to refer you to the worst doctor, right?
Right.
It's always the best. Everybody wants that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody trusts their own life insurance agent.
That's right. Right. Exactly. 100%.
Yeah. But trust is critical. You're right. And trust is organic. Right?
Yeah.
There's nothing from outside that's going to impose trust. It has to build organically. But I do think, and I think you said this, trust comes about as Roman numeral 2 in the outline of building a relationship. First is commonality, common interests, common this or that. There's got to be something common to two people to build a relationship between them.
Yeah. So closing bits, Scott, because we're at time. I think, if y'all haven't figured out this yet, sitting and just applying to jobs is not going to work.
It's just not productive.
It's not going to work. You have to do something different to stand out. Whether it's getting that email from AI and emailing the recruiter directly, which I think is a great tactic.
Sure.
And it helps you stand out, or getting that referral, building that relationship, and getting into situations where you're able to tell your story.
Yeah. If you're going to use AI, it's helpful. No one's saying it's not helpful. It's incredibly helpful. But if you're going to use AI as a product of your job search, whether that's to draft a cover letter or a thank you note or even a resume, try to personalize it a little bit. Tone it up. Make it not what am I? Non-vanilla is the best I can call it. Because if you go too far off the deep end, you're going to lose the person.
Yeah, I think I think it's always when you're following up and doing this thank you notes, always refer to the thing that you two connected.
That's right. That's what this talked about online the other day.
First,
yeah. When you write a thank you note, mention in the thank you note the things you talked about during the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because most people are just like, well, thank you for your time today. I'm interested in the position. Like, start with the personal bit. Nobody's doing that.
That's right. And you're still selling. Keep in mind, you're still selling.
It sets you apart from everything else, right?
So important. 100%. Setting oneself apart. Yep.
Okay. Fun question for the day. Scott, this past Sunday was Father's Day. What did you do?
Went out to brunch and then had some parent and grandparenting time
Okay.
Kept it kind of simple, but had a terrific brunch. And yeah, nothing terribly extraordinary, nothing way out on the deep end in terms of activities, but still had some, had a lot of quality time, and it was great, but simple, and I liked it that way.
That's good.
Yeah.
We went to, so I started a tradition back in 2021, and I'm a big craft beer guy. If y'all seen any of the live stream or podcast, you know that.
That's why the guy thought he was crazy. It wasn't mushrooms, it was beer.
It was beer. And so every year since then, we go to a different brewery every year. And this year we went to Rollertown Beer Works and had a couple of beers and played Uno. This version of Uno was Uno No Mercy. It was all very mean. And things got very spicy.
Whoa.
And there was some cursing, and even from the 14-year-old. But it was all in good fun. It was good. It was great just hanging out and playing cards and having a couple beers.
Well, as long as we're doing commercials, we went to Bliss Brunch House up in Plano, and I endorsed it. It was really good.
Yeah, good. That's good. Next week is our last week. Next week with Scott Butnick. And our topic is actually...
I think I just heard a huge sigh of relief.
our topic will be, your resume is not the problem, it's you. And that sounds harsh, I know, but it's not. Come back and see us next week. In the meantime, this has been Caffeinate Your Career for this week. Y'all have a great week. We'll see you next Tuesday.